Dr. Randall Bell. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Tanya Brown.
Hello, excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And we have a guest in the house, JC Cavitt. We go by JC. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm awesome. And it's so excited to have you in particular as our guest in studio. There's a reason why this is episode number 1, because if anybody goes to Post-Traumatic Thriving, this podcast, I think that in this episode and the next 2, we're going to cover we're going to go from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we're going to talk about some cool stuff. We're going to talk about some really ugly stuff. And then we're going to start talking about cool stuff again.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with cool stuff. And I'm going to start my question to you, Tanya. I know we can literally see your beach out the window.
Right here.
Yeah. Describe your childhood.
So growing up in Monarch Bay here in Southern California, that's what we did. We grew up on the beach. And I always described our family home that if you don't like dogs, if you don't like dog hair, if you don't like, wetsuits or sand in your bathtub, then don't come over. And that's basically, I grew up on the beach, climbing rocks, climbing the tree at the corner of Monarch Bay, and very simple life, very family oriented. We used to have barbecues, and we didn't play bingo, but we had barbecues and, just great fun memories. A lot, even when my nieces and my nephews were growing up, we had, birthday parties up there, up on the grassy area and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I grew up on the beach. Nicole and Denise used to surf down here at Salt Creek, and I tried.
That's literally right
here, right here. And I tried, but yeah, it didn't work. So
give us like 1 or 2 favorite memories of Denise and Nicole and, your family, your mom, your dad, just a little quick recap.
So since we're talking about the beach, I learned Nicole taught me how to skip at Monarch Bay up on the stairs. If you can Google it. There's stairs down on the beach, and she taught me how to skip. And I was like a tall, lanky, I didn't come into my own body probably until, last week. And, so yeah, she taught me how to skip. Denise taught me how to, blow a bubble. And, I just remember there's this one picture, going through all the memories now, there's this one picture that I remember, and it was Nicole swinging me up on the beach when I was probably like 5-6 years old. And for some reason, that's one picture that comes into my mind.
That's neat. That's neat. So great memories of Nicole.
A lot of fun memories.
And a word or 2 about your parents.
Oh my God. Oh, there's not 1 or 2.
Well,
there's so
you can go to 3.
Exactly. My dad, he's kind of like the E.F. Hutton. Daddy walked into a room, everybody listened. It's almost like he commanded that respect without saying a word. He was just highly, highly respected. He was the Hertz rent-a-car manager over here at the Ritz-Carlton. And it's really cool. Every time I go over there, somebody will say, "Oh, I used to work with your dad." And, but he was the disciplinarian. I feared my dad in a very healthy way. He was never abusive, but he was my dad. And, and I'm baby number 4. I easily could have gotten away with stuff. So I just learned early on what to do, what not to do, so I wouldn't get in trouble with my dad.
Yeah.
And I learned early on too, not to ever lie, because he caught me in a lie when I was in high school. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm never going to lie to my dad ever again.
Yeah.
And with my mom, she's, both of them are deceased now. And my mom was really an angel on earth. She probably wouldn't like that title, but truly she was like, honestly, like the most remarkable woman I think I've ever met and probably will ever know. And I remember shortly, probably about 6 weeks before she passed, I remember her saying, "Why does everybody always think I'm their mom?" She was kind of like the Princess Diana of moms.
Yeah.
But that's who Dita was. That's who she was.
Yeah, she's wonderful. And your dad was a World War II vet.
He was.
He flew a bomber.
A B-17 bomber pilot. And he's 5'7". I'm 5'11". I was like the last shot, And so when I actually toured a B-17 bomber pilot in Palm Springs, I was like, my dad flew one of these at what, 24, 25 years old.
Yeah, he's the real deal.
Yeah, he really was. And what did Tom Brokaw call it? The finest generation, or the last generation, or something?
Yeah, the greatest generation.
The greatest generation. Yeah. And I truly, truly believe that they were gentlemen. They were gentlemen.
It sounds like a great childhood, great fun, everything at the beach. All right. Thanks. Okay, JC, I'm going to ask you the exact same question. Describe your childhood.
Well, I'll start by saying it was nothing like Tanya's. A little bit envious, you know. My childhood was very different. So I grew up in a what's typically described as the ghetto, the inner city of San Francisco and East Oakland, California. Poverty stricken, a lot of drugs, a lot of violence. A lot of interactions with law enforcement for me growing up. Mm-hmm. For me, my household wasn't this safe utopia. It was kind of everyone fend for themselves, you know, and as a child, it's interesting when you're trying to grow up and make sense of the world as a young person, and yet you're bombarded with all of these adult, really, really adult, tough, traumatic situations to try to carry and navigate through. It was really tough for me, you know, just to navigate my own household, let alone when I opened up the door and walked outside, everything that was happening right outside my front door in my community.
Right.
And so for me, it always brought this sense of fear and me questioning
just
myself
in your own neighborhood,
in my own house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let alone my own neighborhood. Just, am I safe where I am? Yeah.
Chaos.
Yeah. You know, and so that is what I kind of grew up in as a young person. And I think my ability to adapt and my capacity to carry it has increased because it becomes your normal.
Right.
You know, and I think a lot of folks, when you're growing up in these type of situations, you kind of normalize it and it doesn't become that great of a problem to you anymore. And so that's kind of like my childhood. Both of my parents were alcoholics and addicts. So there were times where I would come home from school and there would be no adults in the house, mom or dad, you know, and me, my younger sister, my older sister would be hungry, open up the fridge. There was nothing in the fridge but a box of baking soda, you know? And so I was one of those kids in the hood. We talk about eating mayonnaise sandwiches and bread and butter. That's kind of what I grew up on because all of the money, the resources went to supplying my parents' drug addiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one thing, JC, is that we're going to talk about it later, but you have an incredible story. You have made literally made history through your TED Talk, which we're going to get to later. But we were having, I think, breakfast once, and you shared some of the stories about school and just fending for yourself. And why don't you share with our audience a little bit about what school is like for you, both in terms of the academics and just the practical, you know, getting something to eat kind of thing. Because that, when you told me that story, I remember vividly. It was, well, you go ahead.
Yeah. And there are a lot of kids out there who are listening, a lot of parents right now who can relate to this story more than you probably could imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. School for me has always been a joy and a love. And most folks where I come from, a test school, they cannot stand it. But for me, school was always a safe place and primarily for two reasons. First reason was school was a place that I saw that would fulfill my need for food. They had the meal program in elementary school for me. And I can recall going to school, getting there early, and whatever my friends didn't eat, I would ask them for it and I would stick it in my pocket knowing that this is going to be me and my sister's dinner later on that evening. Same thing at lunch. And so one school was this thing that this is how I'm going to eat today. And the second love of school was I felt heard and validated. I always knew I was a smart kid and learning for the most part came very, very easy. Almost effortlessly, if I could be honest about it. And so when I was getting A's, I felt good about it. But what I really appreciated was that teachers acknowledged it because I wasn't getting that acknowledgement at home, that praise and that validation for the hard work that didn't come in my community or in my household. So school was always a place of safety for me. And I would wind up, just jumping ahead just a little bit, would wind up going back to my first love to really anchor me at one of the most unstablest times in my life.
So, wow. So share with us, if you would please, kind of what was going on psychologically or emotionally in terms of, you know, just this whole experience. I know you even spent some nights in the park. I mean, what was going through with these kind of experiences of school, the home life, such as it was? Share with us about JC, what's going on, in the heart, emotionally.
I mean, I think for the most part, from the time I was maybe 5, 6, that I can remember, I always had this feeling of like I've had greatness inside of me. And regardless of my circumstances, that I was bigger than those. And I had that since a young boy. And looking at what I saw in my community, looking at what I was living through in my household, I knew then that I would overcome it. Not a doubt in my mind. I've always knew I wanted to go to school. So as a little kid, I had this desire and dream to be a pediatrician. And that love for that came from me bandaging up my mother when she's coming in from these late night excursions with broken nose, busted lips, black eyes, and me at 7 and 8 years old, really being traumatized and afraid of like, Mom, what happened to you? And there was never an explanation. And so here it is, her young son, the one getting the cold rag and the ice pack and helping my mother out. And I think that was the seed that said, oh, I think I want to get into the medical profession.
Yeah.
I want to help people heal.
Yeah.
Wow. That's powerful.
It's usually, we don't get into the field that we're in. Just we wake up one day and go, okay, this is what I want to do. Right. It's like we all have some sort of life experience that leads us, whether, obviously you're not going into pediatrician, right. But, and you'll talk about your studies now, but we all have a life experience that motivates us, inspires us to do the work that we're doing now. So absolutely. I think you're quite remarkable and amazing just knowing at such a small age. When I was a kid, I wasn't even thinking that. So, amen to you.
Yeah. So let me ask you, JC, the environment you're in. You mentioned the inner city. What was going on in the neighborhood? And did you plug in with that or did you not?
What wasn't going on in my neighborhood?
Well, you were in the Bay Area.
I was in the Bay Area, and at that time, we're talking, 70s,
right?
Late 70s, early 80s, at the height of the drug epidemic, crack cocaine, policing, sentencing reform. Like this was a movement back then when I was a kid,
right?
And every time I go outside, you seeing this interaction with law enforcement, people getting shot and robbed and stabbed and. Unfortunately, folks who suffer from addiction doing all type of things in order to sustain and support their habits.
Right.
So I've been exposed to a bunch of stuff at a very young age. Psychologically, part of it motivated me to say, that's not going to be me. I refuse to allow that to be me, including getting caught up with law enforcement. And I can recall when I was a teenager making a statement at 17 and telling my family, I said, man, I'm the only one in this house that has never been incarcerated before.
Wow.
I made that statement.
Yeah. That's remarkable. No, go ahead.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have one older brother, one older sister, and one younger sister up under me.
Okay. So you saw a dynamic that you knew you didn't want to be a part of. Yeah.
Because I saw my older brother, he fell victim to what was happening in our community. So my brother did sell drugs as a mean to provide for himself and our family. He saw it as a way out, like many people of color, especially during that time. And like many people of color with my brother, he got incarcerated, got locked up for selling drugs, got shipped off. And then there's another severed relationship with a family member that I didn't see my brother for years, years and years.
So that's another trauma.
Yeah. So there's layers of trauma going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So JC, you told me once that, that in this classroom, you had to kind of I don't want to say play a game much, but you, I
would dumb myself down. I mean, no, in the
you
hood,
know where I'm going.
Yeah,
go ahead and tell your story.
So because there wasn't, at least I felt growing up, there wasn't a lot of kids that were like me that really valued their education and saw school as a way out of the hood and out of their circumstances. And so when I was in school, nearly the straight A student, getting the praise, getting the validation. But when I'm back home and in the hood, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where I refused to get picked on and teased and bullied. I wasn't going for that. So if that meant that I had to change my vernacular, if I had to sag my pants, turn my hat to the back so that I could fit in and be accepted in that world where I had to live, that's what I did.
Mhm.
And so for most of my academic journey, I had this dual role.
Oh,
I was
that's
this one way in the hood, and at home, total different kid at school.
Okay. Wow. So if
exhausting.
you were talking to that kid today, or a kid like you today as an adult, what would you tell that kid?
Oh, simple.
Mhm.
I would tell my younger self that it is better to be hated for who you are than loved for who you are not.
Wow.
Wow.
Simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
When
That's
you say
powerful.
energy, the energy that it took for me to walk these two different worlds just to look for acceptance out of fear. Now, I don't mind or care what people think about me. One thing that I've learned, regardless of what I do, some people are going to love it. Others are going to hate it, no matter what it is.
Right.
Yeah. So
That's true.
so going back to the time where you're in school and you're kind of putting on the show and dumbing it down and sagging the pants and all of that, was that like a survival skill?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that, yeah. I mean,
Of course.
What other
Yeah.
survival skills did you kind of,
Sports.
learn? Sorry.
Sports. So
okay.
not only was it the dumb myself down, but sports was a universal language in the hood. So you had the smart kids, you had the jocks, you had the folks that stand in the hood that were physically just like, they're great athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And so sports was my way of being able to live in two worlds, especially when I was at school.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So anything else about your child that you want to share with the audience? I mean, what else do you want to share?
What I'll share is this. So there's so much trauma in my childhood that I can go down so many different paths with it. But I think one of the most significant moments in my whole entire life, and my family's life for that matter, right around 7 years old, 6 going on 7, witnessing my auntie. My mom was an identical twin, and never forget this. Woke up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, and the household that I grew up in, most folks would label as a crack house. Addicts coming in, strangers coming in all throughout the day and getting high. And this one particular night, I was getting up to go to the bathroom. And in order to get to the bathroom, you have to walk past our kitchen. And I'm walking, and I see my mom and my aunt with this other adult male at the kitchen table. And immediately, I know what they're doing. I see the glass pipe. I see the screen. I see the lighters. I know that they're getting ready to get high. And in that moment, I was paralyzed. I was fixated on watching these grown-ups doing what they were doing. And the male that was at the table, he grabbed the pipe and he was getting ready to light it. And my aunt took it from him. She took the pipe from this guy and she hit it first. And I can remember seeing the smoke fill and go through this pipe. I can remember the inhale of my aunt. And I'm watching her and I'm looking at my mother in response to what her sister is doing. And everything just seems to slow down. And I watch my aunt put this pipe back on the kitchen table. And all of a sudden, the smoke is coming out of her mouth and her nose. And she's coughing uncontrollably. And she's trying to get her breath back. She gets up, walks directly past me, and collapses on our living room floor.
Oh my God.
My mother gets up, walked directly past me, and she's tending to her sister. And I'm sitting there, and the guy at the table never moved. Had no concern in the world. And I'm watching my mother console her sister as she dies in her arms.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
The crack that they got a hold of was bad dope.
Yeah.
And it killed my aunt.
Oh my God.
Right in front of you.
In front of me. In front of me. And I can remember thinking at 7 years old, this is a good thing. And most people may frown at that, but I thought it was a good thing because I felt that it would be the catalyst, the kick that my mom needed to get clean and sober. And instead of that happening, my mother turned into what I say as the worst kind of addict.
Oh, wow.
And so she didn't woman up because my cousins, my aunt's kids, they would need someone to be their care provider. And I was thinking, oh, my mom is going to have to, they have to come with us. And instead she didn't.
That's the power of addiction. That's
She
the
didn't.
power of it.
Wow.
She
Yeah.
didn't.
And how old were you when this happened?
Just
Jason?
right around 6 or 7 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And you're
6 or
supposed
7.
to be out playing sports, having
Yeah.
fun, going to school.
Yeah.
And then here you are like hit upside the head so many times with all this trauma, layered trauma.
Yeah.
And shortly after,
Oh, I'm so sorry you had to witness that.
it went from losing my aunt to my mom and my stepfather's addiction spiraling out of control. I came home from school one day and there was lights, like candles all around our little apartment. And this was the first time I realized that you had to pay for electricity. I just thought electricity came out the wall as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know you had to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the money that my parents would have used to pay the electricity bill went to numbing their pain.
Mm.
Wow.
And shortly after it went to, now we got to couch surf and sleeping on relatives' couches. And that got old very quickly. And it went to the shelters now.
Oh boy.
Then it went to being homeless and sleeping in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco and eating out of
What
trash
age?
cans.
At what age, JC?
This is right around 8 and 9.
Wow. Were you all together at that time or were you separated?
My oldest brother had already
Right.
was incarcerated. My oldest sister had already went to a group home, all girls group home. And so my mother at the time only had me and my younger sister with her. And my mom's strategy then, right about 9 going on 10, was to give us away. She gave us to DCSF.
Can you tell us what that stands for?
Department of Children and Family Services.
Okay.
So, and in the Bay Area, they used to call it CPS.
Yeah, right.
So it was, I'll never forget that day because I was clinging to my mother's leg. And I said, whatever I did, I'm sorry, just don't give me away.
Oh.
I didn't understand that her addiction had nothing to do with me,
Mm-hmm.
but I internalized it as a kid and thinking that it was all about me.
Wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Which still exists in the world of addiction today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So JC, I got to ask you, I mean, did you see enough TV and these idyllic families portrayed on TV that you knew that something was really horribly wrong? Or did you think this was normal, that everybody's kind of having this experience?
It was normal because I wasn't the only kid in our neighborhood going through a similar experience.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But then going to school and seeing other kids in your school who probably had, a better situation than you, that compare and contrast, like, were you able to? It wasn't
even much of a compare and contrast because most of the folks in my school,
it was your normal. Yeah.
It was many kids.
Yeah.
Normal. And I think one of the things I'll say that I'm passionate about is a lot, our school, our education system, especially when we're talking about inner city schools, they have a lot of the teachers and the faculty and staff have no idea what kids have to navigate through just to get to your class that day.
That's true.
And it's labeled and seen as a problem if a kid is putting his head down and sleeping during class.
There's a reason for that.
And he gets to write up and get sent to the principal office. And no one is asking what's going on with this child.
Right.
And if you dare have the bravery to be curious, you find out that this kid may have to have heard his mom and dad arguing all night. Or this kid
shot.
Yeah, this kid may not have had a meal in the last 72 hours. It's a lot that kids are navigating through that they bring into the classroom setting. And the way that our school system is designed, especially in the inner city, it vilifies those experiences.
It's punitive.
Yes.
It's very punitive. Yeah. It's not rehabilitative. It's punitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're going through this hell. There's no other way to describe it, really. You're just a kid. You're 5, 6, 7 years old. You're keeping out of trouble. Talk about the environment in terms of other kids. Having friends, was it hard to have friends? Were other kids trying to talk into gang stuff? Talk about that.
My social life as a kid, I feel it was great. Other folks may call it dysfunctional, but I was a kid that was very likable. And again, sports is a universal language. That's how you connect, especially I think young boys.
For sure.
And so I had friends, we hung out on the weekend. Some of that was doing illegal activity, breaking into stuff and, trying to steal some coins to go to the arcade and play video games and
to the arcade, right? Something innocent,
and it was that me growing up is you did your chores first thing in the morning, get a bowl of cereal, hopefully watch some cartoons. And then, 9, 10 o'clock, you're outside, doing God knows what, just exploring the neighborhood and hanging out with friends,
playing.
And I feel like that's kind of normal, regardless of if you're very privileged or not, just being able to go outside and play with your friends. That I enjoyed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And what about the gang stuff? Were people trying to talk you into gangs, or you just kind of
So the way that gangs work is very different. So Northern California and Southern California, and I know a lot of folks when especially African Americans, people of color, when we talk about gangs, a lot of folks instantly kind of go to this Crip blood type of thing.
Mhm.
The Bay Area is very different. The Bay Area, it's more about the neighborhoods. So in San Francisco, it's no one's like trying to put you on or jump you into a gang. It's that you have pride for the neighborhood that you're a part of. And so for me, I grew up in the neighborhood called Hunters Point, the Bayview district. And so when I was in school, everyone knew that, oh, JC is from Hunters Point. He's from HP. And so even though I wasn't jumped into a gang or a part of a gang per se, I always rep my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was community based.
Yeah.
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 Okay, JC, thanks. Let's go back to you, Tanya. Talk about kind of where you went kind of through the end of high school and then into college, and kind of give us a picture of what life looked like for you in that kind of period of your life.
So went to Dana Hills High School, literally like 2-3 miles up the road, played on the beach here, went, probably like every class. And that's what we did. And I took 3 years off of right after college. I wasn't ready, even though I loved school, and my student debt can prove that. But I took 3 years off. I wasn't ready. I went to Saddleback right after high school, was getting Fs. And I'm like, I'm not an F student. So I just sat back. My parents never pressured me to go to school. It was something that eventually I knew I would want to go to. So took 3 years off, went to Orange Coast College, found my place, found my professors, loved it, had the best experience. But in high school, I had a lot of loss in my life. I had to bury 6 friends of mine in high school. My best friend 2 years after high school, Carissa, and then the brother I never had, Troy, who that was the hardest loss I think I ever had, because my spiritual connection to God was ripped from me. So then I went to UCSD, and wherever you go, you think, wherever you go, there you are. So I took all that trauma with me to UC San Diego, not knowing that I was holding on to so much pain. And unbeknownst to me, the Coronado Bridge was calling my name almost every single day, until I was sitting in a class one day and I went, okay, I've got to make a decision now.
So you had lost a lot of friends. As they passed away, they died through high school and then also into college. And it sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that it wasn't really processed very successfully.
Not at all.
Which is why we're here,
right,
having this podcast.
Yeah.
And then when you got to college, it's bottled up inside, and you're thinking suicide.
Absolutely.
Here's this tall blonde girl from Orange County who should be, having fun. It's college, and you're thinking about suicide.
Yeah. I wanted to do a tap out. And again, like, I'm able to have this conversation in hindsight now. When I was going through it, I had no idea. All I knew is that this school isn't for me. I'm having a really hard time. It was almost like, I don't want to call it a pity party, but it was almost kind of like, how come I can't do this? And I had I just had an epiphany, and I just said, my mom even said too, you're coming home. I want my kid to get through college alive and happy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But, I bottled everything inside. So that's why I advocate.
Wow. Okay. So that's kind of gets you up through high school, college. It outwardly, the Brown family, the Flan family, the beautiful family, but you're having some real internal health going along. Okay.
Yeah, struggling.
So let's go back to you, JC, the same kind of time frame, talk about, the rest of high school and where that kind of led you.
Sure. High school was so memorable for me, because high school, I was coming into my own, 15, 16. I got my license really young at 16. So worked really hard and saved my money and bought my first little car, my little bucket, little hoopty. It was a Plymouth Champ, a little bitty car. But to me, it was like, oh man, I'm 16 with a car,
right.
And school, I had friends in school. I played basketball. I played football. I was likable. I'm, straight A student. I think people looking at me would have said, oh, this kid is built for success. Success is going to follow them. Mind you, no one in school knows the hell that I'm living through at home.
Right.
And so I'm killing school for the most part. I'm really doing well, excelling. And 11th grade, it's time to take my SATs, and I'm super duper nervous because I know, like, this is the very first step.
It's a big one.
Really big, right? Someone that's like 16, 17 years old, huge step. especially when I'm thinking about, I had a school in mind, which was Howard University. Like they had a good medical school, like this is where I want to go. And so when you do your SATs,
good one.
They have a portion in the SATs that you can check off what schools, or you write in what schools you want your scores to go to. And so usually if you score high enough, they send you these admissions letters, yada, yada. And I remember doing the SATs, studied for it really, really like tough because I wanted to do well, and took it nervous the whole time. Then it seemed to take forever to come back. And I never, wow. The day that I got my SAT scores back was a Saturday. And Saturday morning, right around 11 o'clock, and I checked the mail and I saw what it was. And the weekend, for me at 17, I knew I was going to go out and smoke some weed. I was probably going to have some beers, hang out with my friends. And so I said, I'm not going to open this right now. I'm going to wait until Sunday. Sunday night is when I turn back into the schoolboy, prepping for the week. What do I need to do? And so I put this envelope on my dresser. That was on a Saturday.
Okay.
And I never had the opportunity to open up my scores.
And we're going to talk about why in a second. In the next episode, we're going to talk about your sister, Nicole Brown Simpson. We're going to talk about the very next day with UJC. But I think it was, and what's kind of come out to me is that you both had your childhoods. Yours really sucked, particularly at a young age. Parts of it, and parts of it were great. And it's the same thing with you.
Right.
Parts of your were just idyllic, and parts of it really sucked. And then there's the day where we're going to talk about on the next episode. So here we are at Post-Traumatic Thriving, where you learn the skills to dive, survive, or thrive.
The choice is yours.
That's right.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.